This is OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
All right, here we go. OverDrive, off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app. Your home smart speaker up on TSN 4. Brian Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan on a beautiful Thursday here in Toronto.
Beautiful weather.
I'm loving life right now. We've got hockey tonight, baseball tonight, basketball. We got the RBC Canadian Open next week. It's a beautiful thing.
You guys golf today or what? Did you swing them or
I got a lot going on right now, and I was, just prepping for next week.
I thought you played a Thursday game with Tux and Company.
I usually do, but this week I was a little bit tied up. I had stuff going on, and I wanted to make sure I was prepared.
What did you have going on?
I've had a lot of stuff.
Cramerica. He's very busy. He's got a business. He's very busy. Cramerica.
Yes, I had affairs that I had to get in order. So today, I was just kind of hanging around and doing stuff around here. An exciting day. The WNBA is on its way up, and everyone had to get out there.
What is that report of the Knicks, the only organization that voted it down?
Crazy.
What?
So obviously the WNBA, NBA, they are aligned, and I guess in order for expansion to take place, all the respective owners take a vote in this, like every other league. And 13 current owners in the WNBA said absolutely. And obviously 29 of the 30 would have been wild if the Raptors voted no. Imagine MLSC was like, no, we're good, actually. We'd prefer not. But the only ownership that voted no was James Dolan and the New York Knicks.
Well, wasn't there another issue with?
Well, it's because they're suing the Raptors right now.
Yeah,
they're
because
suing,
of stolen playbooks or something.
Stolen information. Okay. They're claiming an inside job, and
so it's personal.
It's personal. It's 100% petty, and it's spiteful. And I actually have an appreciation for it because it's such a goofball play. It's such a joke that James Dolan's like, nope. Not doing it, as if the WNBA team that will not be here until 2026 has anything to do with what may or may not have transpired between executives with the Knicks and the Raptors.
Yeah, you would think cooler heads, someone up above would have said, you got to just let this one slide and throw your vote in, but do not look like an idiot. But they went ahead and looked like idiots.
Can't do it. Just cannot do it, man. Dolan's like, nope, not doing it. I'm voting no.
But
it's
you
crazy.
You got to respect his conviction, though.
Oh, yeah.
He's basically to hell with Toronto no matter what, basically, right?
That's right.
So he's consistent.
It's so petty and spiteful and vindictive that, you do kind of have to give a little clap to that. You kind of have to appreciate how ridiculous it is that a WNBA team was something he was not willing to accept that will arrive in 2026 and that will have no effect on him or his life or how he operates. None whatsoever. None at all. And you'd think, maybe he's just bent out of shape because the Rangers got pumped last night. Maybe, and because the Knicks lost. It's kind of wild what's going on in Dallas where you get the Mavs and the Stars that are going to be going off every other night. And if the Knicks found a way to win last week, it would have been the same thing in New York. It could have been Knicks, Mavs, NBA Final, Rangers, Stars, Stanley Cup Final.
Yeah,
that was
cool.
Totally within, a scope of happening. And the Knicks obviously couldn't pull it off. And last night the Rangers lost, but the Mavs won. So maybe the all-Dallas final is a possibility. It's still alive anyway.
It is. I thought that was a good game last night. Bobrovsky, for me, was the difference in that game.
Really good.
The Rangers didn't have a lot of shots, but they had good chances. A couple breakaways. Bobrovsky, that backdoor right pad save. The Rangers, that game was a 1-0 game until the guy put it in his own net, which was weird. But
I was more on Shesterkin and Miller, though, I thought. Miller going for the change there was really weird. And what was Shesterkin doing? Just rifling it off the sidewall?
I thought the weirdest, you're right. He fired it away from his defenseman, from Lindgren. You're going left, I'm going to fire it off the glass on the right.
Right.
But I thought it was weird by Verhaeghe. Tkachuk was nowhere near that space. He was 10 feet behind that pass. Like Lafreniere touches that, it goes 5-hole. If you look at the trajectory on the back door, like Tkachuk was basically trying to cross corner dump it, into where Tkachuk was going to be. Like it's up right now. Like it's just a weird play. Look at where Tkachuk is. Like he's nowhere near that backdoor pass, whatever. But it's Lafreniere that just tips it in. The look on his face, I felt bad for the kid.
The
first one wasn't exactly like it's a good shot by Tkachuk, but that can't go in.
That can't go in. You can't allow that goal. Like that's. I mean, Bobrovsky was better than Shesterkin last night, but I thought both teams kind of had some looks. Bobrovsky made some big saves. Like I thought big, but
he's in beast mode, man. Like what else can you say?
Game.
Like he had a weird start to his tenure in Florida, but I'll tell you what, the last playoff and this one, like worth every cent and more. Every cent.
And to follow up your comments from yesterday, I thought Florida did a really good job physically. Like Trocheck, he's a you-know-what disturber. Tkachuk takes care of him early on. Big hit through the middle. Like just, Florida had some answers. They had a plan. And, they looked like the better team even though even though New York got some chances.
5 or less, boys. 5 or less.
I wouldn't say. I think this is going lengthy. The Rangers are going to – if they score on those chances, man, it's a different game. Like, that's the thing. Like, now, goalie Bob was good, though. I thought he was brilliant.
I thought he was good. I didn't think it was really a high-event game. I know, you're referencing a few really good opportunities, undoubtedly, but it was pretty sleepy. I thought even Florida. It's not like Florida. I didn't think they were flying or anything. It was like they were just kind of easing into the series, and it was physical, but it was composed, disciplined. It wasn't overly stupid. I mean, I think it'll get there. I think it will heat up. I think there will be infractions that people aren't going to like.
Do you think the Rangers put the mutant in?
Rempe? Yeah. I don't think Laviolette trusts him or wants to play him. And that's the problem. Is like Rempe, when he's in the lineup, he does not play. He plays a couple of shifts in the first period, gets a forecheck on, and then Laviolette just sits him on the bench.
Right. And I can hear Mike Johnson saying it's great that you want to put him in to add some physicality, some presence, but you didn't score a goal. You had little to show for shots on net, so how's he going to help in that department?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I would think, though, if you're going to play him, like Florida would have been the team you're going to play him against, like where it is going to be physical and there could be some nastiness, and you might want him, especially in that building. He's built up this kind of folklore type of vibe already at MSG where people love Rempe, and I could see him in there in game 2. I'd probably give it a shot. Why not? But I think both things are accurate and correct here. Like the Rangers didn't score any goals, and Rempe's not coming in to do that. He's not coming in to supply any offense, but could he supply some energy, some physicality, get the building rocking? If you believe in that, I could see Laviolette believing in it to an extent. Then I'd put him in. I'd like to see him play. I find him compelling. Like when he's out there, it's interesting. You know what you're getting out of the kid. And in particular at the Garden, like they love Rempe. You're watching warm up to see this guy scale the red line. How many other guys are you doing that for? And that's kind of what he brings to the table. But Florida, drew first blood last night, and the Rangers, they better respond in game 2 or they're in big trouble. You go back to Florida down 0-2, you're in big, big trouble.
Well, and I know that they're whispering in Florida or in New York today. They didn't like that hit with 3 seconds left. I don't know if you saw that.
Yes, on Hedl.
And Florida's bench was like cheering and laughing about it, and the Rangers just skated off. That was it. Like,
right. There's still time on the clock.
Well,
like
no pushback
I got no issue
too.
with that hit.
You're right, but he finishes his check, and the game's over. It's 3 Cobb, but I liked it. I liked that. Mikkola is a big guy. He finishes his check. But I was disappointed that the Rangers didn't go down and at least have a conversation, a little scrum, little something going, hey, lay off. The kid's coming off an injury, too. And, Mikkola just crushes him along the wall. Mm-hmm. And the Florida's bench is laughing and cheering. And the Rangers just headed into the dressing room. Like that's where I think the whispers are coming. Okay,
with Rempe, because he's probably on the ice the last shift. The game's over. It's 3-0. That's where you put him out.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we'll see. It wasn't a high event game. 7-4 in the high danger chances for
I didn't see
Rangers.
much of it
but
last night.
I mean, Bob. I thought Bob like.
No, I'm not saying he wasn't good. Obviously, he had a shutout, Noodles. I'm just.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that was one of the 6 or 7
pinnacle
best games he's played the last 2 years.
No,
in the playoffs.
you're right. You're
like,
right.
I didn't think the Rangers really brought a lot. Like I thought they were pretty sleepy, and yet it was a 1-0 game. You know, you had an opportunity to pounce, push that into overtime. You steal one. And again, I think you look at it both ways. Where if I'm Florida, I'm thinking I'll be better too. Like I think the Panthers will just continue to improve.
That's the scary thing, where it's like the Rangers got to be thinking, Hayes, hey, we're gonna step it up. So can Florida.
So
is Florida.
Yeah,
so I agree. Yeah. I'm going to confirm one thing. Your instinct. I think you're right on Lavy.
About the hair.
I saw an angle last night. They had Pex and Lavy kind of having a chat. Now, the lighting in the Garden is a very, very, I mean, it's TV lights, right?
Yeah.
You know, biggest
Broadway,
stage in North America. I don't know. There might have been.
At the bare minimum, it gets you thinking, doesn't it?
That's what it came across my desk or through my mind. I'm like,
okay,
maybe.
All right.
Like, you know,
I got to do an investigation too, man. I got to look into that a little more.
I thought I was going to text you guys because they had some close-ups, and I'm like, you see what I'm talking about?
There was.
Like,
there
are we talking
might have
Jim
been some
Benning here? Like, it can't be Jimmy Benning because that would be so obvious that.
I think it's maybe some of the shampoo, the shampoo that just naturally changes things.
Yeah.
You know, the
Jimmy Benning was just front to back, full, like, manicured paint job. It was gorgeous.
Shoe polish,
overnight,
black shoe polish.
Man. You'd see him the day before, and it was one style, one color, and the next day it would be jet polish, jet black, and with just a perfect slick.
Yeah.
Like the guy's hair was, he had something going.
He had good hair.
He had good hair. He had good hair, and he was committed to it. But, credit to Florida last night. And obviously, if you're Edmonton and Dallas, you're watching that saying, all right, let's see where this one goes because, it was announced this morning Rempe Hintz won't play tonight. That's pretty significant, man. He's a good player. Like, he's
really
a really good player.
Yeah.
And Hintz is out. And, listen, both these teams – we know what they're about. It's a legacy event, I think, for both teams. We established that yesterday. All 4 teams, they haven't won a cup. You're talking a new captain hoisting it. And up here, it's going to be about the Canadian team, the Oilers, and, it gets more and more focused as you get further into it about what's on the line and what kind of opportunity you have. And the Oilers were speaking on it today. I think they've been speaking on it the last couple of days. And this would apply to all 4 teams. Like, you're only halfway home, but it is substantial what you've already accomplished.
Yes.
Like
you're after one round, Hayes. Yeah,
that's Final Four.
Yeah. Like, you got to get it now, man. Like, this is like if you're McDavid, Draisaitl, you've been building this up for 9 years. Like, McDavid's been in the league for 9 years. Draisaitl's been in for 10. That's a long time in pro sports.
Yeah,
and
it's an eternity, dude.
It is, and they've been in a conference final before, and it didn't go their way. And, like, you're back. It's not the dance, but it's close to it. And
you can smell it.
You can smell it. And, of course, everything that everyone knows is going to be needed. You got to have special teams. You got to have goaltending. Depth guys are going to have to play a heroic role here or there, of course. But I'm looking at McDavid and Draisaitl, and they got to be chomping at the bit here. Like, I want to see what 97's got tonight because – we're all speculating. Is he banged up? Is something off? Is it he's just easing into it? Did he feel like he needed to be a superhero? I don't know. But
I don't think he would ease up into anything. I don't think he eased into anything. I would predict there's something up with him. Because teams understand that if you slow him down in the neutral zone, you're going to have a better chance to win. And I think both teams that they faced, I mean, the LA Kings, he still torched them. But the Vancouver Canucks tried to slow him up in the neutral zone, get their bumps in, get in front of him, but he's so good he's going to find a way. It would not shock me if he was the best player on the ice tonight by a mile.
The thing is there's no, as we all know, there's no space out there. So him trying to wind it up, yes, you can wind it up on entries through the neutral zone on the power play. Like when he gets it in the drop back play, it's an automatic in. Like it just teams they don't have an answer for that entry. He can skate it the whole length and get it in, and they can get set up. But 5-on-5, I think especially Vancouver did a really good job with teams and layers. Like the guys were getting a piece of him every time, a little stick, a little bump here and that. Like he couldn't get wound up. We'll see if Dallas can do that. The one thing I think if Edmonton's going to have success, Edmonton's got to use their pace. They're a faster team than Dallas. But Dallas's D, especially that Tanev-Lindell matchup, were really good in the first two series. You saw what they did against McKinnon and Rantanen. And the first series, like I was thinking about it last night, like Vegas they looked disjointed. They never got like going. And the one thing too is you look at Vegas had Logan Thompson and Aiden Hill, and it was Georgie V now into Skinner. Like they haven't faced the Vezina caliber goaltender.
You're right.
Either.
Dallas hasn't. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Dallas hasn't. You're right.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Now the teams in front of them, Rockstar, really rock solid.
Right. New York, Florida, that's coming.
But that's exactly, if they get through, they're facing one of these rock star goaltenders. But
that goes a long way for confidence that Dallas is stepping on the ice knowing like they have the better guy. If he's still got to play, he's got to make the stops, right?
Yeah.
Ottinger still has to prove that he's capable of winning a cup. He's never
But
done
Hayes,
that.
it's so great to be in the locker room saying, I'm sure Florida's saying, Bob, you do your thing. We got a real good chance to win. Mm-hmm. It's all the normal saves, and then you throw in a couple that you're not supposed to make. That will give us a good chance to win the way we play.
Goes a long way.
That's a good feeling, man.
Well, they have to. And you know what? Like, you're right. Ottinger hasn't done it, but he has the makings of a really
he looks
damn
like the
good
part.
goaltender.
Yeah, he looks the part.
And the other guy, with Stuart Skinner, he's got an opportunity. Like, it could have, like, think of his career trajectory if he loses in Game 6. And it just doesn't, they put him back in and say Vancouver gets Game 6. That looks a lot different. Edmonton's now looking for a goaltender in the offseason to help spell him and help him grow.
Fans are freaking out. They're saying
fans are freaking out, all of that.
Can't have him.
Stuart Skinner's got an opportunity here, too,
well,
to go to write a story for himself type of thing.
Absolutely. And, like, McDavid's always going to be the main piece.
Right.
I was on with Jay last night talking about his legacy and, this discussion that happens every year when there's one Canadian team left. Are they Canada's team? Are you rooting for them? All that kind of stuff. And some people will, and I think there's a difference between kind of rooting, like being a fan, and being compelled by it, finding it more interesting. It is more interesting. Watching a Canadian team, watching the Oilers, we talk about them all the time. I love to watch the Oilers play. I love McDavid. I love Draisaitl, etc. They're a very compelling team. Does that mean I'm parading on the streets if they win? No. Are people in Calgary doing that? No. Vancouver? No. Winnipeg? No. Toronto? No. But McDavid in and of itself and who he is and what he represents, for me, is something I'm rooting for. Like the idea of his legacy continuing to grow because he's such a great player. Like he's a generational talent. He is the guy. The last 10 years and probably the next 5 to 7, it's his era. He is defining it, and he's got to win. He's got to win because Sid did, Ovi did, Gretzky did, Lemieux did. They all did. The only one that didn't that you could consider the generational, but he ran into injuries was Lindros. And Eric got hurt, and but he got to a cup final, and McDavid hasn't gotten there yet. But you put that aside, like that is a conversation, yet when you're breaking down the impact he could have on the series, I'm curious if you guys think he's number one. And what I mean by that is if you're looking at every player available here, like who is going to play the biggest role or have the biggest impact on the outcome of the series?
As much as you've talked about Draisaitl, Brian, I'm going to say I'll still take McDavid.
Okay.
Although he hasn't played as good as Draisaitl, I don't even think anywhere close to Draisaitl. But if you had to ask me before puck drop tonight, who could possibly have the biggest impact in this series, I'll take 97 every damn day of the week.
Okay,
every damn day.
But
McDavid
are we
versus
excluding
Draisaitl.
goalies?
Yeah, let me run through a few here. I got a couple in front of me. Let's start there because you brought up Draisaitl. McDavid versus Draisaitl.
I'm taking McDavid. You can't name a guy on earth that I'd take anything over McDavid before the series starts.
Yeah, exactly. See, for me, though, because of the history that we have, I agree with your assessment. McDavid's better, like in terms of just everyday play. But Draisaitl has been more impactful in the playoffs.
I get that. And you know what? Tomorrow, I might say to you, this will be Draisaitl's series. But before any series, I'll be like, that guy can be so much better than anyone on this earth playing this sport that I got to take him, and I would be stupid not to. Because if I didn't, you'd be saying, oh, that McDavid last night, he was unreal.
It's not McDavid or Ryan McLeod. I mean, it's Draisaitl. Right. The guy, Draisaitl's statistics are out. They're better points per game in the playoffs than McDavid's. Like, that's how good he's been. What about you, Noodles? McDavid or Draisaitl?
So, but I where I thought you were going is, are we excluding goaltenders?
I'm going to get to them. I'm doing McDavid versus other players right here. McDavid versus Draisaitl.
I told you guys yesterday, if I was voting, Draisaitl is the Conn Smythe right now. Okay. If you ask me,
and you expect that to continue in the Dallas series?
I do, because we don't even know what the hell this guy has. He might have a broken ribs that he's playing with, because it sure looked like he was not 100% there, and then all of a sudden he doesn't practice, he just plays games, and he still is an absolute beast. I'm saying Draisaitl because I think he kills penalties, he does everything. He's kind of your Swiss Army knife for Edmonton. But McDavid, is more of a pulse guy.
He scores. He does. Scoring goals in the playoffs is so tough. I'm
going to say Draisaitl. What I've seen of Leon Draisaitl screams that's playoff performer, and he plays like that during the regular season. He welcomes contact, so he doesn't have to change his game in the playoffs because he plays a physical game all season long. So it's Draisaitl for me.
Okay, McDavid or Stuart Skinner? Who will have a bigger impact on the outcome of the series?
I told you, man.
McDavid or Skinner?
McDavid. It's just McDavid. I can't go off of him.
And if Skinner's a gas can? What if Skinner's a gas can?
Obviously, he could be the well, I didn't know that the negativity was a part of it. I didn't know negative impact.
I mean, impact is impact, man. If the guy's a gas can, that's an impact.
Yeah, but I don't want to start a series saying, that guy's going to be a negative.
Positive thoughts.
No, it's not positive thoughts. I don't want to say a guy, that guy's going to be a gas can that's going to outweigh McDavid's positive performance. And again, just like the Draisaitl comment, I might say to you tomorrow, there's a serious problem again in net. And
all right,
it's just a tough one to answer.
I hear you.
I obviously, I'll lean the goalie because we saw it, and there's so many examples of it. Remember, Matthews scored 4 goals. They lost that game. Do you remember?
Opening night, his first game, yeah.
They lost his opening game.
They lost in
overtime that night because Freddie got beat high blocker, I think.
Yeah.
But so McDavid could get McDavid could get 3 goals and 2 assists. They lose 6-5. We're talking about Skinner's game. We're not talking about McDavid, because I believe, was that against Vegas or LA last year in the playoffs? Draisaitl got 4 goals. They lost that game. Mm-hmm. I correct me if I'm wrong, or
I think you're right.
Look it up. Right. Draisaitl, I think, scored 4 goals, and I think they lost 6-5 or 5-4 that night. I can't remember what it was, but so I'm going to lean towards the goaltender because he has the biggest impact. If he doesn't play well, or if he plays great, and McDavid doesn't have to factor in, kind of like the last couple games for the Oilers in Game 6 and 7.
Yep.
We were looking at Stuart Skinner going, this guy was pretty sharp. Now, they blocked a lot of shots in front of him. But I'm going to say the goalie.
Yeah, I think the nature of that position, I mean, we say it every single spring. The Conn Smythe winner could just be the goalie every year. Like, it really could. I mean, as ridiculous.
You don't go the distance without some goaltending performances that are out of this world.
Right, and that doesn't mean other guys aren't making a great impact and playing unbelievable. And, it's never going to just be the goalie every year. But more often than not, it is the guy that goalie's got to steal you games. And, I think that's probably the case with Skinner. And I don't want to face this reality, but the negative, that could apply too. Like if Skinner, if he can't make stops, if he's getting pulled, if they're talking about Pickard at any point, it's done.
Well, they're not going to win that series.
I told you guys that 2 months ago, and you guys were both yelling at me.
Wasn't yelling
I said
at you?
Last year he got pulled 5 times. If that happens again, they got no chance. And it's already happened a couple, so if it happens anymore, they're probably not going to win.
Yeah.
You guys both teed off on me.
I didn't tee off on you. No, I just said they still won because they were the instinct was smart and the team knuckled down. And then Skinner came back and made up for himself. Kind of like Crawford and Darling, Was it Crawford, then Darling back to Crawford? That was that Chicago
Something like
year.
that. Yeah, you're right.
And Skinner's got to be the guy. And you're right, moving forward, I don't think they can play with fire twice.
No.
You get through on a situation where Vancouver nicked up, missing Demko, and they're looking at the other end going, Sheloff. I want to change my narrative a little bit here. People are always going, well, Sheloff's a third-string goaltender. Sheloff's going to be an NHL goalie next year. He's an NHL goalie who happened to be their 3 because of the depth that they had. But that kid can play and is going to be a player. He's 23. He's going to be an NHL goalie, probably a 2 next year, and work his way up from that. But the narrative's like, it's a third-string goalie. Well, he was, but he is an NHL goalie. He's not a guy that they brought in from Tuesday nights down at
right,
Markham Arena, or Westwood. Yeah, he's a player. So I've been caught up in that narrative too. Mm-hmm. I don't. The kid deserves his flowers. He played unbelievable.
Played really well. He did. He played
and he's
really,
going to be
really
a good goalie too.
Struddy's coming up. Jason Strudwick just after 5 on the game tonight, the game last night, among other things throughout the NHL. Teresa Resch later this hour, the president of the new WNBA team coming to Toronto. Teresa will join us a little bit later this hour. And something returned to Toronto last night. Big news down at the Dome. We'll get into it. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.
Now, back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line of the final score. I was kicking myself last night. We hit our best bet. We had Bo with a couple of hits and the Jays to win.
They destroyed them.
I was looking at Bichette home run. I was looking at that last night. Didn't pull the trigger. Didn't have the stones to pull the trigger. But Bo hits a home run last night. First time all year someone hit in 4th in the lineup. The cleanup hitter hit a home run. And they bring the home run jacket back, and they tweet it out. It's on Instagram and TikTok, and everyone's so excited. And a bit disappointed that John Schneider didn't give us that scoop yesterday. He was on the show yesterday, and that would have been big for us and our journalistic integrity if we had that scoop.
Hasn't seen a lot of home runs lately. It's been collecting dust in the corner. That's
yeah, exactly. Is that the same jacket, or did they have to upgrade that?
Yeah. That's a different jacket. It didn't have the Canadian flag on the arm.
Yeah,
but
upgraded.
You know what? Before it seemed like they wanted to get more serious because of the yucking it up, all the group of players that were at the end of the dugout with Vladdy, and some of them were traded, Teoscar and Gurriel. It was like, okay, the party's over down there. Let's get more serious. And it was a dud. It's like it sucked the life out of the team. Mm-hmm. Took the air out of the tires, man. It was a misread, and it was a misplay when you look back on it. Yeah. They tried for a different look, and it took away the mojo of the team. There's no denying that at all.
Well, I think more importantly, the players that left.
Yes, do you remember how exciting this team offensively was, Hayes? Like, it was bombs. It was exciting. Mm-hmm. I mean, their pitching wasn't even what it was now.
Right.
And it's like
chicken strips.
They were. It was chicken strips, and they were patching stuff together. And you're right. I mean, if they had the rotation from last year, this year it hasn't been nearly as good. Although Bassett was good last night, Kikuchi's been good, Barrios has been good. They've been good. But you put last year's staff with the power hitting of a few years ago when Marcus Semien was up here, who they didn't want to pay. And he just said, fine, I'll take the money and go to Texas and win a World Series. And, Lourdes Gurriel moves on. Teoscar moves on. Even this past offseason, by all accounts, Teoscar was looking to come back up, and they didn't pay him. They didn't want to give him either money or term. And he said, screw it, I'll go play with the Dodgers then,
Right.
And were those players perfect? No. Were they lacking in some areas defensively, maybe professionalism or whatever? I don't know, hard-nosed baseball areas, possibly. But they hit for power. They could hit for power, and this team right now simply doesn't do that. They went all in on business like Charlie Montoyo and his bongos. It was a clubhouse around here. Everyone
but I at the time I didn't have a problem with it. It's like let's be big boys.
I agree. They tried it.
Yeah, and it flopped. That's what it was. They tried something different, and it flopped.
And the jacket coming back doesn't mean they're running off 15 straight, right? They still have the same flaws.
Or are they going to start mashing?
Or that they're all of a sudden going to become a powerhouse team. That's not likely to happen because they don't have the soldiers for that. They don't have the appropriate level of talent and power hitting ability. But I wonder if this was player driven. I wonder if someone, just went up to Schneider and said, hey, listen, man, I know we had to change and there were certain things, blah, 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 but there's just no morale around here.
Nothing.
Like,
dude.
we're dying, and you got to try something. Your team is in a really, really bad place, and the fan base is turning on you. The media's turned on you. Your record speaks for itself. You're almost through May, and you're way back. The division's gone. Try something. Try something. And I guess that will be symbolized in the return of the home run jacket.
I don't mind that,
night.
though. But, wasn't it a couple years ago? I think what they were looking at is a young, immature group that had too much fun. And what happened was it got under the microscope with the loss to Seattle, the 8-1.
Yep.
Wasn't that where it's like, okay, knock it off, be serious? And they tried to shift it. It's like, okay, during the regular season, no problem. Like, it's fun. But when they had to turn it on or keep that lead, it didn't happen. I think that's, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't that where kind of the focus is like, you guys need to grow up. You need to be more professional.
Yep.
Here's my take on this.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You can do that, or I believe the right way to do that would have been for the leadership, a Bo or a Vladdy, to say, maybe we got to change our approach here and do it differently, as opposed to moving guys out. Do you know what I mean? I did, as I just mentioned, I didn't mind the change in philosophy, or I was like, okay, let's get a little more serious. Mm-hmm. But if those guys were the real deal, it would have been, they're going to change their approach and do things a little bit differently. Keep our buddies, and we can yuck it up sometimes in the dugout, but it's going to be a little bit more businesslike, as opposed to completely changing the DNA. And I'm saying that, and I did not have a problem with doing that, because I thought maybe this is a little bit more serious.
Yep. Exactly,
Yeah.
and I think the best teams, they marry the two.
Right.
Exactly.
There is, yes, you're mature when you're supposed to be, professional when you have to be, but also you have a good time.
Yeah, I bet you Matthew Tkachuk has a great time. He arranges stuff off the ice,
parties,
they do things
everyone's having a
together,
blast.
whatever. But when the puck drops, watch out.
Go time.
Comes to play. Yeah,
Yep,
exactly.
go time.
But you do have to
Mandatory.
have, that comes with maturity of all the players, like figuring it out. And Bo and Vladdy a couple years ago, younger, promising players, but getting it done on the field, but lots of laughs, lots of fun. Not to mention, baseball's a pretty casual sport in the best of times too, right? Like, guys are yucking it up and laughing all the time. So I don't know.
They play every day. You can't be intense and crazy all the time when you play every single day. Like, you can't do it. And we'll see. Listen, they looked good last night at Chicago. Chicago's terrible. But you got Detroit now, then you got the Sox, then you got the Pirates. You got an opportunity here. It's mandatory they sling along some wins here. Jason Strudwick coming up. Teresa Resch will join us. The WNBA is en route, and there was a commissioner that got hit with some shrapnel today. We'll play it. We'll get into it, and Teresa will join us. That is coming up next.
Now, back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
I love it when you do it like that, and then you're closer.
All right, Jason Strudwick coming up in about 15. We've got hockey tonight. We've got basketball tonight. Got baseball tonight. And in a couple of years, we'll have a double shot of basketball, including in our hometown, because the WNBA is officially en route. They will begin in 2026. It was incredibly exciting, who's who down there at downtown today, revealing that the team is coming up here with, Trudeau was there, Ford was there, Chow was there, Drake was there. I wonder if Drake's trying to get courtside seats to the WNBA team already. I wouldn't be surprised. But it was a who's who down there. It was really, really cool, really, really exciting. And to chat about the announcement today, we welcome in the president of the WNBA team here in Toronto. Here is Teresa Resch. How you doing, Teresa?
Great to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Yes, thank you for doing this. This obviously was incredibly exciting. Can you answer that for us? Is Drake going to be courtside? Is he looking for that? What's going on that front?
Well, what I can tell you is that we have one way that you can get tickets right now, and that is to get on the wait list. So I have not checked to see if Drake has put his name on the wait list. But the earlier you do it, the more priority you have. So let's hope he did that first thing today.
What's on your mind right now? Is it more excitement just of everything that went down today, or just looking at the work ahead, that what needs to go into this?
Well, I'm going to try to enjoy this for the day. It was, as you set it up, it was a wonderful day down at Hotel X on Exhibition Place, where we're going to play our games there at Coca-Cola Coliseum. A lot of people packed the room. We had all those people that have played a big role up to this place, up to this time, really building a foundation for this team to happen, and a ton of excitement. So I'm enjoying that. It just came from a clinic that we did at University of Toronto, and talking to you guys now before I take on what's next, which is building an entire team. That real work can start tomorrow.
Yes, exactly. There's a lot of time for that. And, we mentioned a lot of people. I don't believe I mentioned Larry Tannenbaum, who is obviously, right in front and center in all of this. And Larry's been a prominent part of the Toronto sports scene and business scene for a long, long time. And he's obviously got a great passion for sports. And he put his money where his mouth is. He said, I want the WNBA up here. I'm going to pay for it. I want to be at the forefront of it. How significant is that to have a guy like Larry Tannenbaum behind all this?
It doesn't happen without him. Honestly, you laid it out. He is very passionate about it. He is driven. This is something that he felt needed to be done in this city, and he made it happen. The WNBA has a lot of markets clamoring to get a team, and the fact that Larry was at the helm of this really helped our bid and helped today happen.
In terms of that bid, who was it you felt you had to convince? Was it the 13 other owners in the WNBA, the NBA owners, the commissioner? Take us through the pitch process in terms of who you felt you had to win over in order for this to happen.
It was all of the above. Everybody had to be on side with it. Larry and his commitment to the NBA and his delivery of a championship organization, as well as his leadership for the entire NBA Board of Governors, really helped in the process. We needed to definitely make sure we connected with the other W owners. There was some trepidation. Honestly, this bid was like no other, right? We were in another country. The WNBA is not here, so they had to start from scratch, and there was a lot of things that needed to be built in order for this bid to happen. So it was not easy. It was not an easy process for the league to undertake, and we appreciate them being partners in it and getting to the finish line and bringing the W to Canada.
Teresa, how nice would it be if there was the next Caitlin Clark kicking around in a couple of years when you're ready to get up and running?
Canadian one.
Exactly. Maybe a Canadian Caitlin Clark. But I mean, how big of an impact has she had even for the sport and the eyes on the sport recently?
It's funny you say that because we actually do. Today I spent time at that clinic at Layup, and they had some age group participants from the Canadian national team. Some of those players are committed to play in the States. Some of them are 15 years old. There's a ton of talent in Canada. And I think this team is only going to bring basketball to more fans. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's a Caitlin Clark coming out of Canada in the next couple years. As an expansion team, more than likely we're not going to be eligible for the number one pick in year one. So hopefully the next Caitlin Clark from Canada is at least 3 years away from being there. But honestly, what she's done, Caitlin, to expand the game of basketball and to make it a topic of conversation for people who have never talked about women's basketball before, has opened the door for so many more people and the league in itself. And I think that what's also happened is she's actually got criticized a little bit the first couple of weeks of the WNBA season because she hasn't performed at the same level that people were expecting. And I think what's happened is some of those people who have been casual fans or maybe just understanding or getting to know women's basketball, they underestimated the WNBA and how good they are there. So it's great. It's all learning. It's all new eyeballs. And she's definitely brought the world to women's basketball, which is perfect timing for a team launching in 2 years.
Absolutely. With Teresa Resch of WNBA Toronto, team president of the Toronto team that will kick off their first campaign in a couple of years. And you mentioned the draft where you may not be eligible right off the bat for that top pick, but can you take us through the expansion rules, like how you intend on building this team?
Well, what's great is the expansion rules are still being developed. They haven't had an expansion draft since 2008, and that was actually just a relocation. It was the Atlanta Dream. So they haven't done it in 20 years. So we're paying very close attention and trying to influence what it may look like next year for the Golden State team entering. And hopefully we can impact what the expansion draft and free agency looks like. Currently, the free agency starts the end of January before the season begins in May. So we'll obviously be players in that free agency market in 2026. Rules around the expansion draft, as I mentioned, are still to be determined. So we'll see exactly what they look like. So maybe we might get the number one pick if we have our way. So
absolutely.
We'll see what the W's open to in negotiations on that.
In terms of the name and logo, I know it's still early, and you have a couple of years to figure this out.
Don't do what Utah did, though, Hayes. Don't do it. Do it right away. They're waiting.
No.
Just let's fire it up right now.
Toronto basketball team. I love it.
Yeah, we're trying to figure this out. Like, where do you? Because I'll be honest, Teresa. At the time, the Raptors was kind of cool because Jurassic Park, and then 30 years later, you're like, I don't know. I'm okay with it, but it's not necessarily a name that like rings out 30 years later. How important is it to get it right? Like to get the name right, the colors right, the logos right, all that kind of stuff?
Always important to get it right. I think it's always in the eye of the beholder. Like you just said, it's been 30 years. The Raptors have been around, and it sounds like you're still a little bit not sure about it.
Yeah.
I know that there's some people who would go to bat the other way and say it's the best name ever created. So you're not going to win every single public opinion poll, but it is important to get it right. And I think what getting it right means is it really helps articulate who you are as a team and really build your identity. WNBA Toronto is just a statement, and we can't wait to put our name and flag in the ground and actually have an identity that we can rally around. And I think that's what's going to be most important.
Well, and similarly to the Raptors, it's the only NBA team in the country. Same thing with the Blue Jays in terms of baseball. Now, at some point, there was competition with the Grizzlies and the Expos, but they do stand alone. And I know there was a lot of talk of that at the press conference today that, it's not only Toronto's team, it's Canada's team. And there was some indication that you may play some games, elsewhere in the country. I don't know if you have an answer for this. It may be too early. But would that be during the regular season, or is that just kind of preseason ball where you want to get around the country?
Both. So what's great is the WNBA was great partners in this, and they understand the opportunity, not just in Toronto, but all of Canada. And for us to play regular season games that count, that matter in places outside of Toronto, the league has to be on board. That's scheduling, that's getting other teams on board, and they're partners in that with us. So they have committed to working with us to make that happen. No commitment on number or locations at this point, but it's something that is part of our cooperation agreement and is going to happen because we think it's a big, big part of our vision and really our strategy to grow the game beyond the borders of America and honestly globally. So really excited about that opportunity, something that has never been done before. Like you said, the Raptors and the Blue Jays did not start as the only. They have both become Canada's team over the years through winning and fandom and the movement or the end of other teams. So we're really lucky to be able to start and really position ourselves as Canada's team. And ultimately what we hope to do is grow the game, and there'll be another team in Canada someday. And that will be because of our efforts and because of the game's growth and excitement and the fandom in Canada.
Well, it was a really cool scene this morning, and obviously it's going to be a really significant build-up over the next couple of years, but it's coming, and when it arrives, I think a lot of people in the city and throughout the province and country will be buzzing about it, and I'm sure we'll catch up with you long before you guys tip off. So we appreciate you doing this, Teresa. Congrats, and we'll chat again down the road.
Thanks so much for having me. I look forward to joining again in the future.
You got it. There's Teresa Resch team president, WNBA
What's up
Toronto.
with you don't like the Raptors name now?
The Raptor.
It's a bit weird.
Dude, this
What does
guy,
it have
you
to do
hate
with the city of
everything.
Toronto?
You hate every day. You hate a new thing.
No, it's not about
Sacramento,
hating.
New Jersey,
It's not about
Buffalo.
hating. It's fine. I like the Raptors. They've been here for 30 years. It's here. It is.
I know,
It's a
but
part of who we are.
The way you were just speaking, it's like, the Raptors, it's time to change the name.
Well,
that's what you just came across as.
When they came up with Raptors, Jurassic Park was popular. They did the fan vote stuff, and other people had to be involved, and they went with Raptors.
They won a championship, and they're the Raptors. What about this for the WNBA team?
The name stinks. It does. The Raptors, I don't like it.
It just has no connection to Toronto.
Yeah, there's no
prehistoric up here.
You're right. Like there's nothing. Like
you
Toronto's
guys are
a beautiful
insane.
city.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
Okay.
What's
your suggestion? Go ahead. Let's hear it. Mammoth.
The Toronto Mammoth.
Everything's Mammoth.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Toronto Mammoth.
The Toronto Dinos.
You're going to play off the Raptors?
Here.
You're going to play
the
off
Toronto
the
Dinos. I think it's got some legs. Toronto Dinos.
No, we got to get away from the prehistoric.
Dude, why not?
Spielberg, enough.
JP,
right?
don't ever. I didn't think we had that type of relationship where you gave me that one.
JP
Gave him the
just
horn.
buried
I love
you.
it.
Gave you the horn.
So you're saying you want the Toronto Raptors, the Toronto Dinos.
Right.
I
The
don't know,
Dinos.
man.
No, we got to get away from that. We got to get away. It's got to stand alone. It's got to be its own thing. It's got to feel Toronto, feel
The Leafs
Canadian.
stand out. The Blue Jays stand out. I don't know the Raptors. I'm glad you brought it up, Hayes, because I would have never brought it up had you not brought it
listen,
up.
it's fine. It's I don't think of it's Raptors. It's a dinosaur, and the Jurassic Park thing. I remember when it came out, I was like, we're really doing this, guys. Like,
God, you have such a bad attitude. You have an awful attitude. You have an attitude problem.
I do have an attitude problem. You're right.
Now you just out of the
I'll
blue, you
accept it.
started
Lieutenant
hating the
Dan.
Raptors on a
and
February
that was unfair
afternoon.
to Teresa because she worked for them forever too, and what's she gonna do? She got to stick up for the Raptors as she did, and I appreciate it.
You're lucky that she just didn't give you the business on that segment. It was
that's
just like
valid. That's true.
You just in the middle of the segment, it started growing. You started hating on it. It's like, 30 years ago it was cool. Now I hate it.
Well, you did kind of allude to it. It's like, it kind of,
Well, it's just,
I'm over it.
I could take it or leave it. I could take it or leave it. All right, hour 2 coming up. We'll play Trudeau on Jerry and Strudwick coming up. Struddy will join us as well. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.